From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. As we close out September in our celebration of truck driving appreciation, we want to take a closer look at the profession and those who excel at it. The American Trucking Association's America's Road Team is a national public outreach program led by a small group of professional truck drivers who share their driving skills and the desire to spread the word about safety on the highway. Simply, it's the trucking industry's all-star team. And in this episode, we'll ask the question, what does it take to become an America's Road Team captain? We'll talk to a former road team captain, Nate McCarty with ABF Freight, about his experiences as captain. But first, we'll take a look into the selection process of making it on the road team roster with Elisabeth Barna, Executive Vice President of Industry Affairs with the American Trucking Associations. Welcome to the show, Elisabeth.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you on. As we are, wrapping up Trucker Appreciation Month here at RoadSigns, I definitely wanted to have you on to just give us, a summary and description of America's Road Team. We all know it's a national public outreach program full of the best of professional truck drivers, but it's so much more. So, could you tell us a little bit more about America's Road Team?
Sure. America's Road Team was actually formed in 1986, and it came about as we were lobbying up on Capitol Hill and talking to, local, state, and federal officials about the trucking industry, realizing that they didn't know much about us. And if they were going to make decisions that affected our businesses and affected the professional truck driver, who better to learn about the industry from a professional truck driver? And so America's Road Team was born. They were really ambassadors of the industry, and they went around the country talking about the trucking industry. It has really grown since then. Today we have 3 tractors and 5 trailers, show trailers that we use to go around the country and talk about the industry, talk about safety on our highways, and talk about careers in the trucking industry.
I've seen those tractors and trailers at various trade shows. Most recently, the Technology and Maintenance Council in Cleveland earlier this month. So I mean, to get on the team, it's a small group of drivers, and it's kind of a combination of superior driving skills and great safety records. Could you kind of explain the process of getting those particular drivers who are exceptional in their field to be on the team? So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, this is the perfect time too, as we're just closing the selection process for the next group of drivers to join America's Road Team. We get about 2,000 applications every other year, so this is a every other year selection process. So we say that their term is really 2 years, but once a captain, always a captain. And currently, we use about 100 drivers, America's Road Team captains that we call veteran captains, to help us, really get the message out there. But they have to be nominated by their company. The companies are so generous and they pay their benefits and wages while on the road for us. We've got a number of sponsors that help us to be able to pay their expenses. And then ATA is the ATA staff behind it. So it's really 3 organizations that fund America's Road Team. But they have to be nominated by someone in their company, and that is only basically to be able to say, we endorse this person, we will allow them time off to represent the industry, and we ask for 3 to 5 days a month. Now there are months that we don't use them, but then there's maybe the next month where we need them for 6 or 7 days instead of the 3 to 5. So it balances out pretty well. They have to have a clean driving record, have over 1 million miles if they're an over-the-road driver. If they are a city and local driver, we take into account how many years they've been on the road for that as well. And then they've got to have a speech or a statement, I guess, really, on why they want to be an America's Road Team captain. So they fill that out. Community is very big with this as well, or volunteer work. So whether it is working in their church, or little league coach, or volunteer fireman, volunteer EMS. That all comes into account as to, the driver and whether they are well-rounded. We also have the nominator write a statement as well. And then they do a 3-minute video on why they want to be an America's Road Team, or on safety in the industry, or careers in the industry. So we give them a couple choices on what to do, and just to talk about it so we can get a sense of their passion, really. And we send those out to a couple outside firms, and they narrow that down to us, to about between 50 and 75. And then we take a look at it, and we have an independent panel here. It's made up of staff and former drivers as well. Then we bring in about 32 to 34 finalists every other year in January. And then that is where they really get put through the ringer. They have to do a personal interview with us. They also have to do a prepared speech. And then we do a mock media interview with them. And I'll be really honest, if they're not the best speaker, that's okay. You can always teach somebody to be comfortable talking about what they do, but it's really the passion that we look for, and the willingness to educate, the love of the job. And that is where we've gotten some of our best America's Road Team captains. They really want to be out there. They love what they do. They want to talk about highway safety. They want to recruit other folks into the industry. And they're just really great ambassadors.
One of the things that I learned, and speaking with one of the members, which we'll do later on in the show, Nate McCarty, is the passion of the industry and the love of truck driving. Could you tell me, Elisabeth, I mean, if you could, what when you tell someone that they're officially a member of the team, could you just describe the excitement that they feel? I mean, because it's just you had just described that whole process, and wanting to be a team member and to go through all of that, the media training, and just the steps that it takes to get to that particular point. I'm pretty sure it's exhilarating for these drivers once they're selected into the fold.
It is. And so what we do is we have a veteran driver be a mentor to about 4 of them when they come into Washington. So this mentor has worked with them from the time they've been announced as a finalist till they get to Washington. And then so there's a team of them. There's a mentor and 4 other. And they really stick together throughout the 3-day process. After the last mock media interview on Tuesday, we then go up to Capitol Hill, where we have invited each of their members of Congress to come to a cocktail party and get to know them, so that the members of Congress can see the best of the best. So they get to interact with our members of Congress. Once that's over, we go to dinner, where we announce the new team. And it's really exciting to see, we let them know that not everybody's going to make it. So, don't go crazy. But they get so excited, and they just feel so honored. I think one of the things is that when they come into Washington, they all feel like they've got the miles and they've got the years, and they come and they think, well, hey, I'm doing pretty good because I've got 2 million or 3 million miles. And then they get into a room with 33 other folks that have that same amount of miles, or that same safety record, or that same passion. So to be able to go through that process and then actually get announced as an America's Road Team captain is just such an honor, but so excitement. I mean, you see tears, you see hugs, you see, can't wait to call my wife or my family. So a lot of times what we do is we FaceTime it, so that, family members and friends are also watching the announcement, which is really exciting. But when they are announced, just that sheer excitement and joy and honor to be able to represent the entire industry just comes straight across their face. And one of the cool things about it is they are with their team. So they're with their mentor and their other team members. And whether one of their team members doesn't make it, they all help console that member, but also everybody celebrates together. Within the 2 days or 3 days that they're here, they really become family. It may take a driver 2 or 3 times to try before they become an America's Road Team captain, and so they get that experience and come back. But I will tell you right now, there are drivers that have tried and have not been able to make that step, and they are still part of the family because they've all been together, and everybody really cheers everybody on.
From time to time, an issue commands so much of the industry's attention that it requires a deeper dive, a resource readers can turn to, a Transport Topics special report. We're turning our attention to another big issue, electrification and the key factors that will drive this industry trend. In every case, we're working to provide our readers with information, analysis, and clarity on key issues confronting fleets. One comprehensive resource packed with insights that can give you the edge. Transport Topics invites you to learn more about our special reports. To reserve your copy of the latest special report, visit ttn.ws/electrification.
Since we're in the dawn of having new members to the America's Road team, once those new members are in place, what events do they have coming to them? As in this new role as an America's Road team captain.
Sure. So once you've been selected, you stay in Washington for that week. And as you may recall, we bring the new team to Arlington headquarters here, and we introduce them to the full ATA staff where they actually get their jacket. It's sort of like the Masters where they put the green jacket on the winner. They come across the stage, they get their America's Road Team captain from Chris and our chairman. And so they do that. And then we normally get on a bus and we head down to the Volvo plant in Virginia. Volvo is the exclusive sponsor of America's Road Team. And so they take us for a day. We've got a great reception the evening before, and then we head over to the plant where they get to see Volvos being made and what it takes to do, how they put the fenders on, how they build the cab. And we get to watch them come off the assembly line, which gives the captains, if they've never driven a Volvo, a lot more understanding how the Volvo works. They get to go out on the test track. And so we do that. And then we come back here and we get down to business and do training, what it takes to be a captain. We go through all of the different trucks. We've got a Volvo and we've got two Macs. The MAC is the Share the Road program and our Workforce Heroes program. And then we do a lot of, media training, event training, how to write a speech and that type of thing. The one thing that I do want to get across to everybody is we do not tell the road team captains when they're out on in the field what to say. We want that to come strictly from the heart because that's why they're as credible as they are, is they talk from their true experience. There are times where a captain may not agree with ATA on a policy position, but they don't really talk about policy positions unless it's safety related. We want their experience to be front and center, and that's what they know best, and that's what the program has really been developed for. So I did want to make sure everybody knew that. Like we give them suggestions. You might want to talk about what it's like and what you see, how many people are texting and driving or why texting and driving is bad. But we do not give them any of their talking points in that sense. Events coming up. Oh my gosh, we do so many. With the pandemic, we were even doing virtual events. But we do a lot of safety events, whether it is a motorcycle rally, RV rally. We go to so many high schools. I think this year we're on track to hit 503 high schools by the end of the year, where we've taken a truck and gotten high school students up into the cab of the truck. We do a number of radio interviews or television interviews. We had the Share the Road truck this year at the West Virginia State Capitol when they were talking about lawsuit abuse and the seatbelt gag rule. And so we were able to take legislators for a ride along, and we took some media for a ride along as well. This just past week, I had two captains that sat on a panel talking about professional truck drivers before the House congressional staff, and then in the afternoon before the Senate congressional staff. Then I went to TMC and we had two captains there with our Share the Road program. And then I came home at the end of the week and we had two America's Road Team captains down at DOT with the deputy administrator Mara Joshi, talking about National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. So the range of what they do is so wide and so broad. We do also the National Judicial College, where we teach the judges that make the decisions in the courts what it is to be a professional truck driver. We take a tractor trailer there, and some of these judges are awesome. They get underneath the truck to see what it's under there. Talk about all the different safety technology. All of our tractors and trailers are equipped with the best of the best safety technology. So to be able to explain that, you get a member of Congress or a state legislator up in the truck, and they talk about, they get up there and they're like, oh my God, this is not my grandpa's truck. What, this is like Star Wars in here. Talk to me about all of the technology. And so it's really a great education tool. Our image truck is, I call it a classroom on wheels. We've got an actual truck simulator in there that we allow folks to use. The media gets in there, and we had a member of the media not too long ago doing the truck simulator, and she was getting it on camera. And so she was pretending like she was doing the simulator, but also pretending to text to show that texting and driving is such a bad thing. And the consequences of that are. We've got large screen TVs in that tractor trailer, the showroom, classroom on wheels. And then we have our Workforce Heroes program, which is really recruiting out of the military. So we go to a lot of military bases. It is decaled in a camo. So it's pretty awesome to look at. And we'll also take that to career days around the country as well. So there's really a lot of different things they do. We work with, the scouts and teach them on how to get their highway safety and transportation merit badges as well.
We've been speaking with Elisabeth Barna, Executive Vice President of Industry Affairs for the American Trucking Associations. Elisabeth, I just wanted to thank you for coming on to the podcast and making us smarter and learning about America's Road Team.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for highlighting such a great program of ATAs.
In times like these, it's crucial to stay informed. Transport Topics is offering all the information you need to make business decisions in these unprecedented times. And in the wake of the many event cancellations and group gatherings, TT ensures a virtual way to consume business content and conversation. To join the conversation and stay ahead of the news, follow Transport Topics on all social outlets or by visiting ttn.ws/stay informed.
Next on Road Signs, we have Nate McCarty, ABF road driver and American Trucking Association's America's Road Team captain. Welcome to the show, Nate.
Hey, thanks for having me today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Glad to have you on as well. There's many things I want to talk with you about the world of trucking. So I'll get it started by asking you what attracted you to a career of truck driving.
Well, my dad was in the industry, not as a driver, but my dad was a diesel tech, and he started out working for Halliburton, and he worked for Cummins Diesel for 28 years. So I kind of grew up around the industry, but I was like a lot of little boys. I played with trucks growing up, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And my dad he would kind of moonlight on the weekends, and he worked for a Thermo King dealership, and I got to go to work with him a lot on the weekends, and I enjoyed playing around with the trucks and climbing in and out of them, and acting like I was driving a truck. And my brother actually inherited the mechanic gene, so my brother's a mechanic also. And so when I was younger, I wanted to be a truck driver, but I kind of got away from that a little bit. Coming out of high school, I enlisted in the Colorado Army National Guard, and I thought that I wanted to get into a career in law enforcement. I was ended up being a military police officer. I served in a battalion headquarters, and after my deployment during Operation Desert Storm, I came back and went to college, and I majored in criminal justice and kind of the more I learned about criminal justice, I kind of figured that I wasn't the type of person for that. I don't want to take anything away from our law enforcement officers. My hat's off to them for what they do. And actually, I had family that was kind of steered me back towards the trucking industry, and it was my wife and her family that kind of steered me towards that. Her uncle was a food service delivery driver, and he helped me get my first driving job for a dairy foods company. So the physical aspect of being a delivery driver appealed to me, and it was a good way to keep me in shape. And I touched everything that was on that little straight truck that I drove. And I got into the industry when I was 19 years old. I had a local driving job, so I was just driving intrastate and didn't get out of state yet until after I turned 21. But I just started out with a Class B license driving straight truck, and I did 12 years in the food service industry. And the longer that I did that, the the driving part actually kind of appealed to me more than the physical aspect of it delivering. I still enjoyed the challenge of doing that every day, unloading everything that was on that truck. And sometimes I would deliver up to 30 to 40 stops in a day, so I enjoyed that physical aspect of it. But as I got a little bit older, the driving aspect appealed more to me. So that's how I ended up with ABF Freight later on after 12 years in the food service industry, and still in the trucking industry. But I just that's all I do now is drive. I'm a road driver. I run from Denver to Salt Lake City, and so I get a lot of mountain driving on. But I'm on the road 6 days a week, and that's the part that appeals to me now is the driving part.
Having that type of drive, and I'm pretty sure you enjoy the ins and outs of it from the day-to-day work. That's one thing to enjoy. But what made you want to pursue it at a high competitive level? The level that makes you a captain on the America's Road Team.
Well, it's kind of I've looked at my career as kind of a journey. And when I was working for Shamrock Foods, a good friend of mine, I've always been safety minded, always wanted to get home to my family safe at the end of every trip. But a friend of mine, it took some convincing, but he taught me into competing in the truck driving championships when I worked at Shamrock Foods. And back in 2000, I competed first time at the state truck driving championships. And because of his mentoring and coaching, I happened to win my first year and got to go to the national truck driving championships in New Orleans in 2000. And I caught the bug the first year. And so I've always been kind of a competitive person anyways. you know I competed in high school football. I wrestled back then. I was in track, so I've always been a little competitive. But this is definitely a different kind of competition. That it's more of a skills competition, more and more precision involved. So that it really is a good safety incentive program, because it brings me back around every year. Everybody develops bad habits, and just having that competition out there, it's like, gosh, I want to get through the year with no accidents, so I'm eligible to compete that next year in the truck driving championships. So it's really helped me step up my game a little bit. So by doing that, when I came to ABF, some of our vice presidents got to know me from the competitions, which eventually led me to have the opportunity to get on our company road team. And ABF, they try to emulate everything that ATA does as far as the selection process. And it was a little bit like the truck driving championships. On my first try I got through, we have 12 people on our company road team, and 6 out of the 12 get nominated for America's Road Team. So we apply to go through the whole selection process again with ATA. So it's just been, kind of stepping stones all the way up for me. But it's, the truck driving championships eventually led me to have the opportunity to go to selection for America's Road Team.
Well, Nate, I just want to stop you there, just for the people who are listening who might not know what the truck driving championships are. Can you just give a explanation about what the skills entails, and what a driver has to do to compete in the competition?
Okay, there used to be 4 parts to the competition. You got a 40 question written test that you have to take, and every state does this. All 50 states have their own competition with their state associations, and there can be up to 9 different classes that you compete in. So there's a 40-question written test that involves things in the industry, firefighting, first aid, hazardous materials. So you have that, and there used to be a personal interview that was part of the competition as well. And then you have a pre-trip part of the competition where there's planted defects on the equipment that you have to find in a prescribed amount of time. And then there's the skills portion where you drive uh, a course that usually has 6 obstacles on the course. So it's a culmination of the 4 different parts that where you get your total score. And if you win your class for your state, you have the opportunity to go to the National Truck Driving Championships, which is in a different city every August. So yeah, I've won my state competition 8 times now, and been able to go and compete at a national level. And I've also been able to volunteer there as a road team captain as well. So 3 times I get to be a course announcer, so I still get to be there and see all my friends drive and be a part of it. So it's a huge honor to be representing my company and representing the industry as well.
You described your journey to getting to that particular point, and that's just in the through your career, you have earned many driver certifications and designations. So Nate, and earning those, what are some of the key points that you adhere to stay safe when you're making your runs from Denver to Salt Lake City?
Well, because I have the same run all the time, I think the most important thing is not to get complacent. Yeah, I look at every day different, and starting it out, I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of drivers before, just doing that pre-trip inspection on your equipment every day, just checking everything to not only keep you from having a breakdown, but possibly an accident where you could injure yourself or somebody else in the motoring public. I can't say how important that is to, I do it the same way every time, just being mindful of what I'm looking at and making sure my equipment's ready before I go out on that run. And when I'm running in bad weather, the way I look at it, no snowstorm that I drive in is exactly the same. So you always have to keep your guard up, and you're constantly staying vigilant, driving defensively. So that's my biggest thing, that I fall back on. And I think some of it comes with experience too. You learn to be a better judge of conditions over time. So with the run that I have, just doing a lot of mountain driving and driving in bad weather, it's really important not to get complacent.
Hmm. Most definitely. Well, one of the things, just even from your military background, and you being a captain, that requires a degree of leadership. And in the military, you definitely learn that degree of leadership. Could you just tell us how you felt the military prepped you for this particular situation, for the career that you're having now, and being a leader in your field?
Well, you can identify with this being being prior service yourself, that it's just that attention to detail. You try not to leave anything out. And I was just talking about your pre-trip inspection, checking your equipment, just looking at everything and not missing anything. It's I have a good friend that was a Marine that worked on Marine One, and he had to look at the president's helicopter every day, and he said, I don't look at inspecting my equipment any different than when I was looking at the president's helicopter. He said, because the safety of the motoring public is just as important as the safety of our president. And I thought that's a really good analogy when you're talking about attention to detail. But some of the parallels that I've drawn lately over the last year and a half with COVID, and some of my friends that are veterans like I am, just we feel important to this country right now. Bringing everything to the stores and doors of consumers, and we feel like this country really needs us right now. A little bit like when we served in the military. Our country needed us then when we went through deployments and did different things. And so, I think back on that a lot lately too, how, we're still serving our country, but just in a different kind of way. So, I enlisted when I was 17 years old, and got deployed when I was 18. So it kind of forced me to grow up early, and yeah, I matured early because of it. And I think that was one of the things that helped me do so well when I got into the industry at a young age too, was having that good solid background that I got in the Army.
Yes, and definitely with that time being deployed at Operation Desert Storm, that's definitely a trial by fire. So it kind of makes driving a truck pale the comparison when you're dealing with the things that you had to deal with when you were overseas. You had mentioned being a truck driver during COVID, and since you kind of we sort of have a year to you sort of have a year to process what your career as a truck driver in that particular year as a truck driver, how has that formed any perspective as a truck driver, being in that particular situation where it seems like to you that the world and the nation was at a lockdown, but you still had a job to do. Could you just describe that particular moment and just the things that you went through as a truck driver?
Well, a lot like my military service, it made me really proud to be a truck driver, and I'm always proud to be a truck driver. But just at that point in time, with all that going on, it makes you realize how much people need us just for medical supplies, for grocery stores, and all the different things that we haul. That it seemed like when everybody was locked down and at home, and people were laid off or having to work from home, it almost seemed like our industry was thriving. And I run on one of the busiest truck lanes in the country on I-80, and just to see all the trucks out there, and it made me feel really good. It made me feel really proud of, no matter what's going on in this country, I've always looked at the trucking industry as the backbone of this country. And whoever's in office or whatever's going on, we're always going to be there moving the goods that people need. But it gave me a renewed sense of pride in our industry.
I mean, with that, you've been in it for a long time. We had this trying year with COVID, and you had described that experience, but you've had 20 plus years of experience in this. So I'm going to ask you, Nate, to take off your truck driver hat and put on your analyst hat for all the truck drivers out there. So I ask you in doing that, what are some of the major differences that you've seen in the trucking industry when it comes to the working environment of the truck driver, or even in the business and personal relationships that you've had through this industry? Or what are some of the differences from when you started to now that you're seeing?
Well, one of the things that's really obvious to me is the changes in equipment. Our equipment has just gotten so much better. It's much more comfortable. I think companies realize how important that is to drivers when they're trying to recruit people, when they're trying to retain people. Just having the best equipment on the road that's maintained well. And I've seen all the different new safety technologies and environmental technologies come along that people weren't real warm about it at first. But when you see that it's an enhancement for what you were already doing, I've seen big differences in equipment. And even though I haven't been over the road my whole career, I've seen a big difference in facilities. Truck stops are listening to drivers and making things better when you have to go in there and get fuel, or take your break there, or even take your rest break there. So I think facilities have gotten better. And I know that's something that's a constant battle is truck parking. I know but the industry is constantly working on that, because there's a lot more trucks on the road now than there was 29 years ago when I started doing this. So I think they've been receptive to listening to drivers and trying to make conditions better for the drivers out there. So I've seen a big difference in that.
And one more question before I let you go, Nate. Still keeping your analyst hat on, or I guess you can take your analyst hat off and put on your truck driving hat back on. So my last question for you, Nate, is what best piece of advice would you give for someone who is interested in becoming a professional truck driver?
Well, I think you have to get off on the right foot by looking at it as a career and not a job. And I know you've heard it before, and a lot of our parents and grandparents told us that when we were growing up. If you find something that you can enjoy, you're never going to work a day in your life. So my advice is do your homework. Find something that's going to be a good fit for you, something that you think that you're going to enjoy. And that's the cool thing about our industry is it's so diverse. And you have 3.6 million truck drivers and all these companies, and there's a lot of different segments in our industry. So do your homework. Find something that's gonna work best for you and your family, something that you're gonna be happy doing, because the trucking industry, we're maybe somebody from the outside looking in might not understand that, but we're like our own little world. Just just the way we interact. And even though the industry is segmented and we're all doing a lot of different things, you have people that are hauling fuel and people that are pulling flatbeds or people that are in freight like me. We all have a common goal, getting home safe at the end of every trip to our families. So just find something that's going to work best for you and your family.
We've been speaking to Nate McCarty, ABF road driver and American Trucking Association's America's Road Team captain. Nate, it was a pleasure having you on.
Hey, thank you for your time. I appreciate you having me on today.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original question. What does it take to become an America's Road Team captain? First, we'd like to thank our guests, Nate McCarty of ABF Freight and Elisabeth Barna from the ATA, for joining us in this episode. As our guests have expressed earlier, truck driving is born out of a strong passion. Like Nate's story of how he fell in love with trucks, there are others on the America's Road Team that share a similar journey. In addition to the love of truck driving, the Road Team serves as a celebration for seasoned drivers who excel at their craft, and it also serves as a platform to raise awareness of a profession that has offered opportunities for so many Americans. The process of making the team is rigorous, but in the end, from the members' perspective, it's a path well worth the effort. Thank you for joining us in our September celebration of the truck driver, and we appreciate the time you spent with us learning about how the truck driver is vital to our economy. On a personal note, the RoadSigns team would like to congratulate our co-host, Seth Clevenger, and his wife, Andrea, on the arrival of their newly born daughter, Nora Rose. Nora, Mother, and Papa Seth are doing just fine. If you enjoyed this episode of RoadSigns, please let others know. Rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the RoadSigns team, or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Freeze. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of RoadSigns. Until then, I'm Michael Freeze. Thank you for listening.